What is up, gamers? It is time to get our 70% like to dislike ratio because we're just talking about Zenless Zone Zero, and that's what happens every single time we cover Zenless Zone Zero, because I am known as the Hoyo Shell, the Kuro hater even, because I quit Wuthering Waves for Zenless Zone Zero, which I'm having an absolute blast with, by the way. I've been loving Zenless Zone Zero so far. Anyways, that's besides the point. Let me stop glazing. Let's hop into this tier list now. There's not very many characters to go over, but this will be my first tier list on the video, so I do want to make it more nuanced, I guess, and talk more about stuff. So this video might end up being like a little bit longer than I originally planned for it to be, which was like 8 minutes, but we'll see where we get to, right? So let's go ahead now, and I don't even know how they have this set up, right? We have pure DPS, anomaly DPS, stun, and support. Here's what are the criteria here, right? The criteria is all characters are assumed to be utilized in their best 3-man teams, played optimal rotations without mistakes, using the best drives. Okay. Characters are all rated at Mindscape 0 unless otherwise stated. We will increase the A rank. Okay, that's fine. I think that some of these characters probably should be graded on like their mind rank, whatever it's called, E6 or whatever, because I have a lot of these very close to getting E6 and E6, and I haven't spent I've spent some money on the game, but not much money. I spent money on maybe yuan, if you know what I mean. And I just want to look here at really the major influence on rating. This is this damage output, but the best possible team to achieve max star rating and shield defense. Anomaly's major influence is going to be the anomaly damage, and then a medium influence is ease and frequency of anomaly application on 1 or 2 enemies. Stun is going to be how much daze a character can deal. Okay, medium is whether a character grants any buffs or applies debuffs, how strong they are, and how strong they will impact the rating of days, and then how much anomaly or damage they can do. Yeah, I think this is very important for stun characters. And then finally, for support characters, we have how powerful the buffs are, how much time on the field, how much time they need to be on the field, and then finally how much damage they can do on the enemy as a role of a support. So I think these are all pretty fine things. So let's go ahead and hop into the tier list now. First, starting off with, what is this, support category? Yeah, let's start off with here first. Yeah, I think Shokaku is the best in the game. She can literally do so much. If there's any that I don't understand the placement on, we'll go check the pros and cons of the characters, of course, to see why they're ranking them the way they're ranking them. But yeah, I think that she's absolutely a banger. She gives an absolutely massive buff for your team, and on top of that, she's pretty efficient at breaking the enemy's toughness as well. So I kind of use her as like an off stun type character, because me personally on my account, was most of the time that I played through the game, I only had Anby as a stun. I got Coleta. I still haven't got this guy right here. Yeah, so stun has been kind of detrimental to me, but overall, I do think that she helps on that category and gives a pretty massive buff, so I can agree with her being there. Now let's move on to Miss Renadina. Miss Renadina, I can kind of agree with this. I think that she is, wherever Grace is going to be at, I think she sits around the same level as that, until we get more characters added into the game, of course, that really play off of Anomaly. But the pin ratio and increased duration of shock she's able to provide really helps Grace out with getting shock off, obviously. First of all, you get some more damage from that, but also helps out Anton as well, because Anton is the one that, he is the Kafka, right? He reprocs those shocks, so the longer the shock is staying up for, that means the more chance and more damage he can get out, because shock is just up for that much longer. But I do agree, for right now, I think anywhere that Rena is at, Grace also has to be at as well, so I can agree with this. Now, one observation I would like to make here is I do think Nicole, with the addition here, does increase her value. I think that she probably sits here in tier 0.5. I think with the defense shred she's able to provide, plus the ether damage bonus from her core skill she's able to provide, that this actually does enhance with the release of Zhu Yuan here. Now, when we get over there, I have some takes about Zhu Yuan that maybe is unfrowned upon even, so we'll get over there and talk about her in a second. But I do think with the release, I think that Nicole does move up here. I think we haven't really got a super strong fire DPS in the game yet, or the other fire characters we have in the game really aren't super strong. Actually, I do think that Soldier is pretty strong here, but overall, I think that she does stay here for right now. She does provide some pretty decent buffs, but not where I would say to move her up any. So let's go ahead and move into our stun category now. Yeah, I absolutely agree with this whole list here. I think that this is exactly how it should look. Lycon, absolutely menace. Coleta, she works. That's fine. Actually, looking at this, they moved her up. Let me go check the chain log real quick, because I'm curious to see why they maybe moved her up or down. We've tested her, and the difference between pre-hotfix versions and the fixed one is like night and day. She is now closer to Lycon than Anby, and they're also retesting Nicole as well. So I do think that this sentiment will stay true, that maybe she moves up here. Yeah, so I think Coleta is a pretty good breaker, honestly. So yeah, I agree with her being in tier 1.5. Her being here, she was the breaker I had for the longest time. You should probably build her on your account. You get her for absolutely completely free, and she will definitely help with breaking enemies because you do want to get as much damage out on the enemy as possible, considering they are bullet sponges. So you want to make sure you're getting those huge damage multipliers as quickly as possible. So having her level up on your account is almost honestly like an absolute must. Ben feels clunky as a bitch. I'm not gonna lie. This is the clunkiest character I think in the game. Me personally, I think Billy is better to play and more fun to play than Ben is here. Honestly, I'd probably move Ben down here. He does provide utility to the team. Don't get me wrong. I think his shields right now are pretty negligible unless you're playing on mobile and you're getting hit a lot, right? I think it doesn't matter right now. I don't think shields matter in the game right now until they make harder content in the game that really make them matter. Sure, he can play well with Coleta, and if you're running him on a fire team, maybe he's the best in slot. But realistically, if you're running a fire team, right, you're probably running Coleta, you're probably running her right here as well, and you're probably running Ben, right? Like, that's what I'm thinking, right? Because I think that Ben and her synergize pretty well together. But I don't think he synergizes well with anyone else. I think the only use case you would use him for is on a team with Coleta. I personally wouldn't even use him as a breaker. If I'm being completely honest with you, I would use someone like the free-to-play Shokaku we get instead of him. So yeah, this one gets a check mark for me. That's a pretty good list right there in my opinion. Okay, little girl here. Ew, I don't really like the little girl here. But yeah, I think that she's, honestly, yeah, I can see her being about right here. I think she stays about right here. I do think that Ellen does gap. I know every Shiyu defense I've done with Ellen and her on either side, that Ellen has always cleared faster when I've had better gear on my Grace, or even in playing with a super souped up Anton as well, which I do think is better than what they give him. And honestly, I haven't played with Piper at all, so I don't know how good she technically is. I'm curious to see what are the pros and cons that they're giving Piper here. Has incredibly limited potential teammates she shares factions or elemental synergies with, outside of other physical DPS who she'll need to compete with on field time. Lucy is the only non-DPS who doesn't take up field time for her and competes with other physical DPS. So I mean, if that's the case, then yeah, I think that she probably does compete pretty well with here. I don't think Billy's kind of in the race right now, but I do think if that's the case, then yeah, if she competes well there, I'll take them at their face value word for this. Obviously, I haven't tested her yet. Obviously, it's also in zero as well, so that maybe does change with extra buffs added onto her and shit like that. But for right now, I'm just gonna go with it. I agree with it for now because of the fact that spin to win, her playstyle looks fun. She's a child. I don't really like her. So I'm going to put personal bias here and leave her at the same tier that she is, especially since I haven't actually tested her out. And gamers, before we hop into the DPS, please hit that subscribe button. We'll be having a Qingyi guy out very, very soon. So if you guys plan on playing for Qingyi, then make sure you hit the subscribe button. Anyways, gamers, let's now go ahead and hop into what the best DPS in the game are. Are they rated properly? Anyways, let's get to it. Now on to this character. I've tested out both of these characters. I've used both of these characters. Me personally, I think that she's in tier 0.5 right now. I find myself clearing a lot faster with Ellen still than I do with Zhu Yan. And honestly, I have built my Zhu Yan up a lot more than I built her up. I even, I put Brimstone on her and put her on a 4-star weapon. She was still outperforming. So I think for right now that we move her down, because I think the big difference here is I don't think that Ellen relies on the break as much as she relies on the break, right? And maybe if you have a Lycon, right? Me, I don't have Lycon, so I can't test this out. If you maybe have a Lycon, it gets better. I think personally, guys, right? While I think that she is, let me move this arrow here. While I think she is down here for right now, I think when the next patch comes out and we get the new 4-star stun character, which I'll make a build guide on a couple days from now, when Qingyi comes to the game, she is going to move right back up here, and I think that she honestly will be better than Ellen, honestly. After Qingyi gets added to the game, when she gets her signature character that can pop the absolute fuck off with the electrical stuns, I think that is where she is going to make a name for herself, as Gambit would say. Anyways, sorry, I had to throw that in there. Deadpool movie was absolute peak. But yeah, I do think she moves back up with a vengeance whenever Qingyi gets added to the game. I just found myself a little bit of difficulties playing with her and maximizing her damage because she does rely so much on the enemy shields being broken. So with that being said, I think she does move down here to tier 0.5 right now. I think she is better than these DPS right now, but that being said, I do think she does move down. Now, if we're talking about these guys right here, right? Personally, I like Soldier 11 a lot. I know Nekomata is pretty fun to play with as far as playstyle and stuff goes. Actually, I would probably move Soldier up to tier 0.5 here. And I'm curious to see what the pros and cons for her are because I think her damage potential is pretty nice. She just has some timings, right? And I think people don't really like timings too much. So if we're talking about a general audience, especially if you're playing on mobile in this game, Soldier 11 might not be the character for you because there are some pretty tight timings you have to hit with her. And on top of of that, guys, it's just her playstyle overall can be harder to play than some of these other characters. So I'm curious to see what her pros and cons are here. Let's go here. Where's that review? No standout features other than good damage output, putting her at risk at power creep from other fire DPS. I think that's what, yeah, I mean, that's true, right? She has good damage output as soon as you put someone else in the game that does her job better than she drops down. But as of right now, I don't think that's indicative of putting her in this tier, honestly. So for right now, I think she's sitting right there for me. Now let's see what else here. Basic attacks have special times and mechanics required to pause for a short moment. Yeah, that's what I was also saying as well. Like, she has like kind of tight timings and mechanics you have to hit with her. So, I mean, for mobile players, maybe not. She's maybe right here for you, but me personally, I think she's right here in tier 0.5 right now with Yuan right now. I think when we get fire DPS moved into the game, she starts dropping down dramatically. But for right now, I think she is sitting right here. Now let's get on tier 2. Anton, I think Anton's tier 1. I think if you put him on a team with Grace, he is an absolute menace. Now, of course, this is rating off of M0. I think... I don't know. I've never played with him M0, so I couldn't give you my honest-to-God opinion on that. I know you can give infinite energy to him if you do have M1. I think the ability to reproc is super good. I think he is super underrated. A lot of people shit on him, but I think he will get better with time, honestly. I think he is a character that will get better versus getting, like, power creeped more so in the future. Maybe if we have another reproc character in the future, but if we get another stronger, like, Anomaly type electric character, he definitely stays up with them. Like, he's very close to them because he's able to reproc that, right? And with that being said, let's go look at his pros and cons real quick because I'm curious to see what they're actually saying about him here. Has a large amount of damage potential tied to his ability to trigger additional damage against shocked enemies, making him reliant on ensuring the enemy remains shocked for as long as much time as possible. Yeah, I agree with that. Has limited options outside of S ranks when it comes to team building. Okay, I can agree with that. Relies heavily on the burst mode, dealing the majority of his damage, feeling lackluster outside of it. Like I said, I think he's a sub DPS. I think he is the definition of like a sub DPS. Like, he has main DPS levels of damage in those sub DPS times. You don't have him out in the field all the time. I would say if you're playing with team with him, her, and her over here, you would basically have Grace in the #1 slot all the time. You would basically have him in the #2 slot all the time, and then she would be in the #3 slot to provide buffs off target. So basically, with her, you would be doing basic attack, basic attack, basic attack, skill, not EX skill, but use skill whenever she gets the grenades back up. Then you do basic attack, basic attack, basic attack, EX skill if you have it, and then if the enemy's shocked, you swap into him, do your burst damage there, and then you just get Rena's buff up whenever you get Rena's buff up, right? So that's the basic breakdown of how you would play him. So I don't think he's someone that's supposed to sit on the field the whole time, right? I think she's very good at dodging enemy attacks and stuff like that, and just getting out of the enemy's way, and she can provide shock so often. I think she makes him super, super viable. So for that reason, I think I'll be moving him up into this tier 1. I think he absolutely deserves that. As for her, yeah, I think she sits about right here. New shirt, don't worry about it. My footage got corrupted. I was just yapping about the new character. So I'm going to quickly go over it one more time at future editor me. So Qingyi, guys, where do I think she's going to be? I think she's going to be top of the breaker category. Actually, let me change the color up here. I do think that Qingyi will be at the top of the category right here. For breakers, I think she'll be a little bit better than Lycon. I think she can be better used than Lycon can. So yeah, we're just going to go ahead and put Qingyi up here. Now let's go ahead and talk about Seth, which is our new 4-star character we're getting in the game. Now, he's not going to be a breaker like Ben. More so, he's going to help out Anomaly proficiency a lot. And with the amount of buffs he's able to give out for your Anomaly proficiency characters, mainly Grace here, because Grace does play off a shock. He's a shock character as well. So they can synergize pretty well. He increases Anomaly proficiency. I do think that he'll probably be sitting up here with Nicole as well. I think she'll probably get better as time goes on. Maybe as we get like a better fire DPS in the game and more people in her clan or I guess faction or whatever. But I do think Seth will probably be sitting up here in the tier 0.5 as well. I think, yeah, all those supports in the game right now are pretty solid, and I think he'll be sitting up there too. So now finally hopping into our last character, Miss Jane Doe with the Fat Katukas. Yeah, I think she's probably going to be up here tier 0. I can't really see any reason of why she would be worse than Miss Grace right here. So for that fact, I'm going to be putting her up here tier 0.5. She should technically be better than what Grace is because she is a signature character. Not to say that's always the case, but that's usually the case when the game first comes out. So for that fact, I will be putting her up here as well. So really good options for you to choose between these patches. Honestly, guys, Jane Doe's banner does help her out a bit more just because of the fact that Seth will be increasing her Anomaly proficiency. She's an Anomaly character, so he is going to help her out a lot. So that's going to be really, really good there. Anyways, gamers, that's going to do it for today's video. Also, if you can guess the song at the end of the video on the outro, I will be giving you a battle pass, so make sure you guess it. Bye!